So I am going to turn it over to Anthony Kiko. He's going to introduce himself, and then we're just going to start with candidates, okay? Everyone, if you need index cards, just raise your hand. We'll get them to you. We probably started with 3, but definitely if you need 10, 12, just raise your hand. We'll hand them out. And then when you write your questions, we'll raise your hand. We'll pick them up, okay? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Kiko, and I am the Executive Director of Communications for Riverview Gardens School District. I am a North County resident, but not a Bellefontaine Neighbors resident, so I won't have an opportunity to vote in this election, but I'm happy to participate in this way. Thank you to the citizens for setting this up and for coming out to hear from these candidates for this important office. We're going to start with introductions from all 3 of the candidates. The introductions will last 2 minutes each, and we will start with Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Anthony, and I want to thank the library for allowing us to be here. I want to thank those who put this forum together and allow us to share with the residents. I am Tommy Pearson, the pastor of the Greater St. Mark Family Church. I've served on the Riverview Gardens School Board for 7 years, and I was board president 5 of those 7 years. I was elected to the Missouri House of Representatives for 6 years. I served as president of the General Baptist State Convention of Missouri for 6 years. I served as president of MCU, Metropolitan Congregations United, for 3 years. During those 3 years, I co-wrote the workforce development piece for the I-64 project, which was a $525 million project. That project put more African Americans and women on any federal highway project of its size in the history of this country. Missouri Department of Transportation had put together an advisory committee, which I chaired. And for that, my name is on a plaque on the Tam Avenue Bridge. I am a retired United Auto Worker. I've been a community activist for many years, and as mayor of Bellefontaine Neighbors, I will do no less. As mayor, I will bring people together, create good policies, and with the leadership background that I bring, I'll be able to lead a strong administration that will address the needs of the city. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Christian.
Hello, my name is Jim Christian, currently alderman in Ward 3 of Bellefontaine Neighbors. Prior to that, I was on the Public Safety Commission of the city for 7 years. My wife and I lived in Bellefontaine Neighbors for 13 years. I currently work for Party City as general manager. Been there for 13 years altogether almost. Done it over 2 different times. I run a store with about 8 to 10 employees. I take care of the things that they need and everything. I look forward to getting together with everyone, talking, listening, and just doing what needs to be done to make our city a happy place that people want to come live in, place that businesses want to come to, and just an overall place that everyone is proud of. Thank you.
We'll move on to Mr. Carroll.
Good afternoon. My name is James Carroll, and thank you for coming out. These candidate forums seem to be getting smaller and smaller as they go on. I think it's important everybody comes out and listens to what each candidate has to say and make their decision based upon that. My 3 priorities as mayor would be that I think we need to come together and have some sort of plan for our community. The saying, fail to plan, plan to fail, or fail to plan, plan to fail is very applicable for our community. I think that's what we're experiencing right now, that everybody's got their own views, their own direction, and no one's coming together to say this is where we need to go. So that would be my very first priority would be to pull residents together, go out into the community, and come up with some sort of plan that everybody is allowed to participate in. My second goal would be for fiscal responsibility and oversight. Our budget is very tight. We continue in the 3 years preceding with the data that's been available, we continue to run into a deficit anywhere between $200,000 and $400,000 each year, and we need to tighten that up. If we continue to dip into our savings, we won't have any savings within the next year or two. And then my third priority would be neighborhood stabilization with an emphasis on public safety. I think we've got a lot of crime, a lot of speeding, a lot of gunfire that gives the perception of chaos in our community, and I would like to address that.
Okay, now we will move on to the question portion of the forum. The way that this will work is each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions that were submitted by different residents. We will start with this first question. This is regarding the police department. The resident wants to know your opinion regarding merging the Bell Fountain Police Department with the North County Cooperative. And we will start with Mr. Pearson.
Thank you. I don't favor the merger at all. It takes power away from the residents. I think a city the size of Bell Fountain Neighbors is well able to have its own police department and manage it. So, and we as residents can address the needs of our community with our own police department. So I don't see, I would not favor the merger.
We will move on to Mr. Christian.
I would not be in favor of merging with North County Cooperative. I believe also that Bell Fountain Neighbors Police Department can handle their own, that we as our city need our own police department, and that having an identity of that police department to patrol our own neighborhoods would make everyone else feel more comfortable that it is our own police force working for us.
We will move on to Mr. Carroll.
I would not be in favor of a merger either. I think it takes power away from the community and the residents, and so I wouldn't be in favor of it either.
The next question is regarding economic development. What short or long-term goals do you have in mind for economic development in the city of Bell Fountain Neighbors? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
I think when you look at Bell Fountain Neighbors itself, as some residents have deemed it a bedroom neighborhood, and many do not see or do not want to see a lot of businesses come in. However, I think there are pockets, places around the edges of Bell Fountain Neighbors where there need to be a nice sit-down restaurant. I've talked to residents, they want to spend their monies in the neighborhood, in the city. We don't have that, and that's something that we need to look at and get serious about putting a real, not just a restaurant, but a name brand restaurant where people driving down the highway would stop in and eat. You have the zoo coming in down on the end of Larimore. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming through there. I think a restaurant would be great and would serve those people well.
Same question for Mr. Christian.
As far as short-term goals for development, the one thing that we could do as a city is to make sure that the landlords who own the businesses and the areas where there are businesses right now are kept up to code, that they look nice, and that they're just pleasing to see as you drive by or if you stop to go do business there with them. In the long term, yes, we have lots of traffic going along 270, 367. If there's places available for economic development along those areas, those are places that we need to look at and develop, along with the things like the zoo and stuff. Anything regional that comes through and needs to be looked at as a way to help engineer more economic development that way also.
We'll move on to Mr. Carroll.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. His question was regarding economic development. What short or long-term goals do you have for economic development for the city of Belle Fountain Neighbors?
I'm not really sure about economic development. I think that's left up to the citizens, and if we can all come together and come up with some sort of plan. I think there's a lot of
Can I just ask you to speak a little louder?
Sure.
We're having a hard time hearing you back here.
I would say I don't have a position on economic development one way or another, because I think that's up to the residents to decide if that's the direction our community wants to go in. If you look at the community, though, there's not that much area left to develop. 95% of Belle Fountain Neighbors is already developed. So I don't know, unless the area up at 270 and 367 is a potential place for redevelopment, but Belle Fountain Neighbors doesn't own that, and the cost that they want for that land up there is prohibited. So I mean, if we're going to do economic development, we need to look at other, are we going to annex other areas? Are we going to tear down things and rebuild? I think if the citizens do want economic development, it's going to have to be in conjunction with the zoo. I think that would be a big opportunity for this community.
The next question is regarding crime. What specific ideas do you have to reduce crime in this community? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Well, public safety, I think we need to look at what's going on, the trends, what's happening right now, and how we can address it. I don't think, I know there are some crimes in Belle Fountain Neighbors, but I don't think it's all over Belle Fountain Neighbors. So what we have to do is zero in on where it is, stop it right there, and come up with some youth programs where kids can get busy during the summer, and perhaps after-school programs as well, would serve the city well, would take kids off the street, kids who doesn't have anything to do, no place to go. If we had a controlled environment for these children when they get out of school, I think we would serve the neighborhood well, and we'd be bringing up some healthy children as well.
Okay, we will move on to Mr. Christian.
Some of the ways that we can work on reducing crime, one of the things, we need to have our neighborhood watch program back. We need neighbors and citizens to never feel afraid to call the police when something is happening. They need to be the eyes and ears for the police when they're not around. But then the number one thing that I think that could be done is to just make sure that the police are always out on the street patrolling the streets. Even if they're stopped for a while to fill out a report or something, park in a visible area, be seen by everyone, and just be out on the streets.
We will move on to Mr. Carroll.
I think regarding public safety and reducing crime, we do need to reinstitute the neighborhood watch program. I think residents, the chief has said many times at board meetings that it can't be the police department alone. There's going to have to be residents who get actively involved. So I would like to see that start up again. And I think also like a combination of different type of policing, predictive type policing where certain crimes are coordinated and the police focus their resources in that area. Currently it's one basically per ward is from my understanding, but if there's more crimes in Bissell Hills, it makes sense to have more police in Bissell Hills as opposed to Green Acre subdivision. I also would like to really get going with community policing and fund that. I think if we can build relationships between the residents and our officers, that would start developing trust and help solve crime. And also, I don't think our police department is adequately staffed. Town and Country has 31 police officers, just as Belle Fountain, and I can tell you the crime rate out there is a lot less than it is here.
And this question calls for a simple yes or no answer, and we will start with Mr. Carroll. Are you in favor of the city counter merger?
Yes.
Just yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Christian?
No.
Mr. Pearson?
No.
This question is regarding teamwork. How would you work with state legislatures to bring more resources to Bell Fountain neighbors? We'll start with Mr. Carroll.
Well, I guess meet with the state legislature. I don't know. I've been to town hall meetings with the state legislator, and basically all the state legislators of North County, and basically they said that there's nothing they can do because the Republicans control the state legislature. So I don't know what can be done if that's the case. I don't know what resources we would be able to bring to the community if there's that type of uncooperation in Jefferson City.
Mr. Christian?
The main thing would be just to make sure that you have an open dialogue and they're always speaking with all the state legislators. Yes, most of pretty much everything here in North County is within one party, but reach out to other areas and things too, and speak with legislators of other parties just to let them know that things that are needed here could also help benefit the rest of the state in the long run.
Mr. Pearson?
Well, I think there are a lot of things you can do. As you know, I'm a former state rep. Even though the Republicans dominate the House and Senate, you can develop relationships with them and work with them through committees. I had the budget committee that put $1.5 million in the budget specifically for Riverview Garden School District, and which passed the House and the Senate. Of course, the governor then took most of it out for whatever reason. But the district did get several $100,000 from that. But that's because I develop relationships with people. That's the same thing I would do as mayor, is develop relationships. You'd be surprised at what you can get done when you have good relationships with people.
This next question is regarding the Fire Protection District. As mayor, how do you plan to work with the Fire Protection District? What type of interactions, cooperations, etc. would you have with this important organization? We'll start with Mr. Carroll.
Well, I go to the Riverview Fire Protection District meeting, so I kind of have a general idea of what's already going on and stuff like that. So I think just having an open dialogue with the fire district. Also, I think we all need to get together, not just with the fire district, but with the school district. And every year we're being asked to pass these propositions. I think we all need to sit down and what year this proposition is going to be, and what year this proposition is going to be, and who's it going to be, and that sort of thing. So I think there needs to be a coordination between the city and the fire district and the also the school district. With the leadership that's in place at the fire district, I feel very confident with what's taking place over there. So I would just keep an open dialogue and continue to go to meetings. You learn a lot.
I think we need to have a representative from the Board of Aldermen to attend the district meetings. One that would make the time to commit every week to attend, to be at them. I know not everyone can make every meeting all the time when they need things, so if we have one specific person that is their focus, we have them do that, report back to the Board of Aldermen. But also at the same time, whenever there's community events within the fire district, within the city, within the school district, that we all work together to show a unity of people and show up to all of them together, showing that we're working together with the community.
Mr. Pearson?
I think the fire district is important. Well, we all know that they're important, especially if we have a fire in our home, and there are some other performances that they perform for the community in terms of when people get sick and things of that nature. I think there again is where we need to have strong relationships with the fire district. Our first responders are very important to us. and we need to work with them. They need to work with us as a city. We need to find out what they need, and I wouldn't go in trying to be a dictator, like I know what they need and I know what, everything. We need to sit down and talk together and come up with a workable plan that will make the residents of this city safe.
The next question, what specific plans do you have to partner with neighboring municipalities? And we'll start with Mr. Christian.
It's kind of along the same line as with the fire district. We need to make sure that we reach out. As mayor, I would want to speak with the other mayors. I wouldn't be attending all of their meetings and everything, but to make sure that whenever they have monthly mayor meetings or anything like that, that we're all working together to be on the same page for the community as North County as a whole. As they're developing things, it's something that we can work with too. If it's a proposal where our money and their money can be worked together, or grants can be found together and things like that, we need to just get with the other cities and talk with them and know what their plans are, to let them know what our plans will be. Is it something that we can do together?
Mr. Pearson?
Well, again, I think, we should work together with mayors. All of us together could come up with some kind of grant or revenue sharing program in terms of whatever project we target. So it's important that we develop relationships with other mayors and treat them as our partners. I know there was a time in Bellefontaine Neighbors where they didn't work with other cities. And so as a result of that, you have right now cities around us, not all the way around us, but say Glasgow and Riverview, for example. Those are cities that we all need to work together to make them better communities. And not one just stand and watch your neighbor fall down and nothing is said or done about it. I think we need to work together for the common good of all.
This next question is regarding.
I didn't get a
how you
chance.
handle-
I didn't get a chance.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Mr. Carroll.
Well, I think first of all, it's a reciprocal relationship. So, are the communities willing to work with Bellefontaine Neighbors, and does Bellefontaine Neighbors want to work with other communities? I am particularly concerned about Riverview, being how we are neighbors, and it is incorporated. There's a lot of crime, there's a lot of decay going on in Riverview. I think we really need to partner with Riverview, because those crimes are going to come over to Bellefontaine Neighbors. Riverview has about double the crime rate as Bellefontaine Neighbors, and that is going to seep into our community. So I think we need to, that would be really kind of my focus is Riverview. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
This next question. As mayor, you have to serve as a type of city administrator. What specific skills or experiences do you possess to fulfill those duties? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Well, if you check my background out, I do have a background in leading organizations. I've never led a city, but I've led other organizations for years. As president of the Riverview Garden School Board, for example. MCU, 60 churches, 300,000 members. And the General Baptist State Convention. I've led those. I was chair of the Missouri Legislative Black Caucus, so I led that organization. So I have leadership skills in working with people, bringing people together, and that's how we get things done. We get things done when we work together and cooperate with one another. You don't get things done fussing and fighting. That's the kind of leadership skill I would bring, that we are here to work together for the common good of all of our citizens.
Mr. Christian?
Duties for the skills of mayor, I think that's something that I do every day, being a general manager in a retail establishment at Party City. I have assistant managers under me, I have regular associates under me, I have to make sure that they're at work, that they're doing their jobs. I have to make sure that the work is getting done and that what the company wants gets planned out in a certain way to accomplish that in the amount of times that we're allowed, that we're given. I do the help with the hiring and the administration of the store. Whenever you hold it up, it bugs me. I counsel employees. I make sure that employees get trained properly. I think a lot of the stuff that I do in the job that I have now can carry directly over as being mayor or administrator of a city.
Mr. Carroll?
Well, I work as a counselor. I have my own business out in Chesterfield, so I'm working with people all day long and developing relationships. That's probably half of what counseling is about. So I would bring that skill. Additionally, counseling is basically just problem solving. So I sit around and problem solve with people all day long, whether it be the relationship problem, school problem, work problem. So I do a lot of problem solving all day, every day. Additionally, I'm a U.S. Army veteran, so I have that where, the Army is very big on leadership and all of that good stuff. My son's currently serving in the Army as well, so I bring those leadership skills. I've been a supervisor in my past previous jobs, so I would bring those. I think the big thing, though, is I think I'm pretty creative, and I think I'm pretty good at problem solving and thinking outside of the box, because that's what we're going to need to fix this community or turn this community around.
Okay, this next question is regarding the school district. What specifically would you do to support the school district's push to gain accreditation? And we'll start with Mr. Christian.
We need to, same thing as with the fire district or anything else, have an open dialogue, make sure that we're there as a city to speak with them and everything, but also then find out what we can do as a city to provide things for the students, to make the students want to be in school, to make them want to do things good outside of school once they're done with their classes and everything. Any kind of programs or anything that possibly we could do as a city that would help encourage them with their attendance, with their studying, with their needs as they're getting closer to graduation time. What exactly that we can provide as a city to the school district, we'd have to look into all that and everything, but just we need to be a friend to the school district and do the best we can to provide whatever it is we have available to the students in the area.
Mr. Pearson?
With Riverview Gardens, when I was on the board, I initiated the community leadership meeting where we met monthly. I think they meet quarterly now. But for the community leaders and the district to get the leaders to get together to just talk about where they are, the district educate the community, and so there's no problem when it comes down to the district asking the community to support something like bond issues or like programs, because you're already abreast of what's happening, and you already have you've already developed a love and relationship with the district, so it's nothing new. It's like your kids, they're in the house with you, so you know what their needs are, and you're there to meet them.
And this is
It's my turn again.
excuse me, Mr. Carroll.
Well, this is the fourth year that Riverview Gardens School District has been within the accredited range, so we should be accredited this year. I think it's more important that citizens come out. The state, being how the state's taken over the school district, comes in twice a year to hear, views from residents, and I can tell you those are very poorly attended. I think there's probably maybe me and another person that attends the school boards on any regularity. So I think that's important, is to get citizens involved in the school district, for one. Secondly, I went on a tour about a year and a half ago, and one of the things that they mentioned was the infrastructure of the surrounding communities. That helps the school district. So if we could figure out a way to finish our street repairs in our community and building sidewalks that students can get to school, that's part of the accreditation is the attendance rate. And I also think it's important to have some type of aftercare program, whether it's the school partnering with the rec center to provide that service.
This question is regarding streets, a two-part question. What specifically would you do to repair the streets in Bell Fountain Neighbors and address the idea of speed bumps? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Streets in some parts of Bell Fountain Neighbors are bad. I'm fortunate that for 15, 16 years, the street that I would drive down was really bad, but it got repaired last year. And then the bridge, the Shepley Bridge down there got repaired as well. That was really bad. So, but as I drive around the city, there are other streets that are bad too. Now, I don't know how the city gets all of its street money. Something tells me that we're going to have to explore grants from the federal government and the state to repair our streets, because we don't have the monies to repair all of those streets. Money has to come in from outside somewhere. So you're gonna need somebody with some inside connections, if you will, that can do that. I have a relationship with the Missouri Department of Transportation. As I said, I work with them on the I-64 project. So relationships matter. Let me say that.
Mr. Christian.
As far as repairing streets go, with having bond issues and everything, if we can work on getting our property values increased, the bonding capacity would increase. That would allow us for some other things if we would need to have another bond issue. Grants and things, as far as speed bumps, that's something that could be something combined with other municipalities and things to work on speed bumps and things, and to try to get grants for that, as that's a smaller expense, but an expense that do we necessarily have in our budget. So looking around for other ways to find money would be the way to go for speed bumps and traffic control devices and things to control the speeding in the city.
Mr. Carroll.
We don't have money to repair the streets. That's just plain and simple. There is no money to repair the streets. The only way that I can think of is that we improve the property value so our bonding capacity can go up. So we could borrow more money to repair the streets. But other than that, I don't know of any other option. Regarding speed bumps, I would be in favor of speed bumps, but I think we have to be smart about where we're placing the speed bumps. I think we need to. At one of the public safety meetings, Chief was talking about trailers that provide you with your speed limit, but it also records data of who's speeding on the streets. And I think if we could get that type of equipment, get that in the community to actually start seeing where we do need speed bumps, I think we need to look at that option. I think also speed bumps aren't the only thing to slow down traffic. You can make curbs stick out a little bit more. You can put circles in the middle of some of the streets. So I think not only speed bumps, but I think there's other options that we need to be looking at as well.
Next question. In the police force, along with other departments in the city, they lack diversity. What specific goals do you have for increasing diversity and inclusion in these departments? We will start with Mr. Christian.
To include diversity and everything. Currently, right now, anyone that's in there and things should go through a diversity training. That should also be something as someone gets hired into any of the departments. But for hiring purposes, we need to branch out into different areas and different ways of communicating the jobs and positions that we have open and everything. I don't know exactly where they post everything right now and things, but postings in the St. Louis American, reaching out to the community college, where there's going to be more people who are from North County and things that would be looking for jobs right as they're graduating. Just showing that we need to work with different areas and things, that we just need to find the right places to do it and everything. I just messed that last sentence up, I'm sorry.
Mr. Pearson.
Well, there's no question about it. Bellefonte Neighbors Police Department has to be diversified. And leadership kept it pretty much all white. While the neighborhood changed, I used to speak with the former mayor, Marty Rilloff, about that. The leadership is changing, but you guys aren't changing. I mean, the community is changing, but you are not changing. And I would always get this excuse, but I can't find nobody qualified. Well, I submit to you that a lot of police officers that I come in contact with in Bellefonte Neighbors aren't qualified to police me. So I think that the chief and the mayor need to come together and make sure that when they hire police officers, that they hire a fair share of African American police officers and women. And so, in regards to what anybody say, Sergeant Facello, who was killed in Bellefonte Neighbors, I passed a bill in the House of Representatives to name 367 Sergeant Facello Way. So I don't have a problem with police officers. I have a problem with police abusing their authority. So we make sure that that stops.
Mr. Carroll.
I think you need to look at the demographics first. I mean, is it go to the academy and see how many African Americans, how many Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, Caucasian Americans are actually applying to be police officers and successfully completing the academy, for one. Is it a supply issue, or is it a issue with Bellefonte Neighbors, is what we need to first look at. And then secondly, regarding hiring of police officers, there's a board of mainly composed of African American citizens that give their input as to who's hired or not in Bellefonte Neighbors as a police officer. So, you know, I've spoken to Chief. I think that demographic should be released. Whoever applies, all of that demographic information should be made available to residents. So, like I said, is it an issue of the academy, or is it an issue with Bellefonte Neighbors? But I would suggest, you know, we've got African Americans who participate on the hiring committee for the police officers in this community. So what's the issue?
Next question, and this is a two-part question. First, would you like to reduce rental properties in Bellefonte Neighbors, and if so, how would you do that? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Reduce rental property. And by that, I'm assuming you're talking about single-family dwellings. Well, we need to find out who the owners are, and work with those owners to put residents in those, sell them to them. We could come up with a grant funding kind of thing where we can do housing development and put low-income people in residence rather than to have them leased, because the problem is down payments and stuff like that, because they pay a healthy rent. They could pay a note. The problem is having that down payment to initiate a mortgage. So that would need to be addressed, because there are a lot of families looking for places to live, but they don't have that upfront money. So we would take a look at that and try and fix that problem, where low-income families could take ownership of this property.
Mr. Christian.
first we should encourage home ownership. We should encourage as many people as they can to want to own a home and everything, as the best of the abilities that they can do. As far as reducing rental properties, I don't see a reason why we need to. What we really need to do, as long as we have rental properties in the city, is to make sure the people that own the property are taking care of it for the people that live in there and doing their job to keep the home and everything else. Just because that someone's in a rental property doesn't make them a bad person or anything like that. We as a city need to make sure that we're going after the bad person when the property doesn't look good, which is probably more than likely a landlord that's nowhere in Bellefonte Neighbors, nowhere in St. Louis County, and in some other state completely.
Mr. Carroll.
Regarding rental properties, I'm the most vilified rental property owner in all of Bellefonte Neighbors. I can tell you that right now. I think it's a bizarre culture that we have, and I really find it to be racist too, based on racism. That whole notion of you're a renter and a homeowner. So regarding rental properties, I don't think it matters. I think it's a matter of who lives in the home, whether it's a homeowner or a renter. It has nothing to do with who you're being a renter. Yeah, absolutely. I would like to see more home ownership. Yearly, there's a housing resource that's not well attended in the community. Maybe we could, publicize that a little bit more. Look at people, and just because home ownership isn't the goal for everybody. Some people, this is a stepping stone on their way out to a better life. You coming in from the city, you get here in Bellefonte Neighbors and move on. So I guess that's your own personal belief and what's important to you, but
This next question is regarding city ordinances. What specifically would you do as mayor to enforce ordinances to make sure that these things are enforced? For example, speeding. We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Well, I think one of the first things we need to do is police need to, I believe in community policing. I think if a police officer worked an area for a month and don't know nobody's name there, that's a problem. You have not made yourself acquainted with anybody in that neighborhood. You just drive and look for somebody to stop and arrest or whatever. And I think police need to become more acquainted with the community, so you don't see everybody as being a criminal. There are a lot of good people in this community, but a lot of times they're seen as criminals just because the police don't know them. And anybody that they don't know, they pretend that they're afraid of. And so you may shoot anybody because you don't know them. And so you need to get to know the folk that you police, and the people that you police need to know you. And you all need to develop some kind of relationship while you speak. I see police driving down I wave at them, they look off. Well, what is that?
Mr. Christian.
I'm through.
I think the said question was city ordinances and how do we enforce them. First, we need to decide, are all the ordinances that we have right now things we want to enforce? Do we need to sit and get together, like we've started in some places with some ordinances on the Board of Aldermen, to review them and see what they actually say and everything? If they're ordinances that we think are outdated or no longer needed or anything, then the Board of Aldermen needs to repeal those and get rid of them. Enforcement, if a code is going to stay on the books, then either the police or building department or whatever entity that is responsible for that ordinance enforcing needs to take care of that, and we need to enforce it and let the city take care of the things that they need to do through that way.
Mr. Carroll.
could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. mayor, how would you enforce city ordinances, specifically things like speeding?
Well, first of all, I think most of this, I think the city, the mayor, the BOA need to look at the ordinances. I think a lot of those ordinances are outdated. They were developed in the 50s and 60s. Some aren't applicable to our current community. Some are unconstitutional, like our sign ordinance is partly unconstitutional, but nobody's making any changes to that to bring it into compliance. So I think we need to start there to look at all the ordinances and decide, what we need, what we want as a community. Regarding speeding, I believe, as I said earlier, I think our police department is short-staffed. We've got 31, 32 officers, which is the same size as town and country. And I guarantee you, we got double or triple the crime that's going on in town and country. So, I think we need to be looking at that police staffing issues as well.
Next question. If the city received a $1 million grant and you could do anything you wanted to do with it, what would you do? We will start with Mr. Christian.
Isn't it fun to just want to wish? We need to actually work on trying to get $1 million grants, but the first thing we would need to do is actually sit with the board and come up with a plan. I don't know if the best thing, rattling things off, police department would be great to use another $1 million on. Streets, sidewalks have been mentioned before. The parks. Having $1 million is great and everything, and having a wishful thinking that if I could have $1 million, what would I do with it? But we probably really need to focus on is the $4.5 million or so that we have currently right now, and how to make that work to the best of our abilities within the city and everything, and not just hope on wishful thinking, but actually go through and try to apply for these grants and everything where we can get more money, and then along the same lines develop a plan if we get that money in.
Mr. Pearson.
If I had $1 million, do whatever I wanted to do with it, I would probably, as mayor, look at the vacant housing problem and use it some kind of way to put the residents in those vacant properties and put them on a tax roll. But it would be something that I need to look at as mayor and not sit here speaking off the top of my head.
Mr. Carroll.
I'd invest it all in early childhood education. I'd give it to the school district. There's from the last I heard, when I went on the tour of the school district, there was a waiting list of 80 children trying to get into the early childhood education center up here. I think that type of investment, I've read where it yields a 3,000% return. You have kids that are school ready. They're not behavioral problems. So I would, if I had $1 million for the community, I'd give it to the Michelle Obama Early Childhood Education Center.
Next question. Based on your observation and experience, how would you rate the city on transparency, and what specifically would you do to make any improvements, if any? We'll begin with Mr. Pearson.
Transparency, a little unclear as to where you would start. Whether we're talking about the budget, the police department, the streets department, or whatever. But I do think that, as one resident told me the other day, that we need to start that community paper up again. That's when he got educated, by reading that, and that community paper no longer go out. So probably we could start right there.
Mind speaking up? They're saying they can't hear you, so everybody on the panel, can you please speak up?
All right,
Thank you.
all right. You want to turn this mic up?
Yeah, turn it up, please.
What's stand up? If that works.
So that's probably what I would do, is just come up with a way where we can get information out to the community and get some kind of feedback from them.
Mr. Christian?
As far as rating transparency, compared to the things that people want nowadays and everything, we're probably on the low end of it. We need to update a lot of things for communications and getting information out to people. Our website needs to be redone. We, as a city, probably need a social media policy so that we can use social media in ways that people are using, Facebook, Twitter, Nextdoor, all the different venues and things now. The newsletter does need to come back because there are still people that want their information in paper form. But we need to get as much information out and into the people's hands just in the right way and everything, and in a way that everyone can find it.
Mr. Carroll?
I'd give it a D. I think it's very poor. I think there's a lot of secrecy that goes on in our city government. Part of the thing about transparency is that people are presented the information. It's not just you get the information, but you have to have access to that information, not going through submitting sunshine requests and going up there and asking for it. I think that all of that information should be readily available, and I don't think it is, particularly with the budget. That's our money that they're spending, but we don't hardly ever get to see the behind the scenes as determining what's going where and what's going to what department. And I think also with transparency, what's so important about transparency to me, it's not only about educating the resident, but it's also about holding the elected official accountable. If you say you're going to do this, and then you're emailing the other elected officials doing something else, well, you're not being what you said you were going to do, and you need to be held accountable.
Next question. What changes would you make regarding the rec center? And we will begin with Mr. Christian.
Changes regarding the rec center. I would hope that we could do some kind of changes where we could increase programs and things, make it easier for people to want to come up and use it, make it more available to the citizens of the city. I don't have any other changes that I would do other than that, just to try to create more programs and make it more accessible to everyone.
Mr. Pearson?
I was talking to a mayor not long ago, and listening to him, they generate a lot of funds through that rec center by making it available to communities to hold various events in it. I think we could do the same thing. I think there are a lot of people in the neighborhood, in the city, who would love to hold events at the rec center. But I think our rec center is too restrictive, and I used to try to lease it myself some years ago. There was always some kind of issue. There was always someone who want to belittle you and act like you were a little child, and stand over you, telling you when it's time to go and all of this kind of stuff. They just made it. It was not conducive to going in and enjoying yourself. I changed that.
Sorry, testing.
Okay.
Can everybody hear?
Yes.
All right, so Anthony, I'm gonna ask you to speak up because hopefully you all can pass the mics when you guys speak. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right,
I think we're on Mr. Carroll.
Carol.
No, I'm just going to speak up.
Well,
I'll speak
you
up.
Because they're saying that you're the
I'll
one that
speak.
can't hear.
Okay, well, I'll speak up. Can everybody hear me? Okay, there you go. So what I would do with the rec center, I think the rec center is just a siphon of the city's money. I think first of all, I would want to look at restructuring the rec center. I think a lot of those people up at the rec center, it's just nothing but nepotism. They got a lot of the jobs up there because of who they were related to or what elected official that they were related to. So I'd be looking at restructuring the organization of the rec center. I think there's too many supervisors up there at the rec center. You've got a director, you've got about 2 or 3 supervisors, and how many other part-time employees. So I would look at restructuring the whole rec center to start with. And then secondly, I think we need to have programming that's applicable to the residents. I think we need to be using the van to bring people to the rec center so they have access, particularly kids, to have access to the programming at the rec center.
Next question, what would you do regarding random gunfire in the community? We'll start with Mr. Pearson.
The first thing I would do is talk to the police department to find out from them what we should do about it, because whatever's done, they're the ones to do it. And if they don't know how to do it, then they need to go somewhere where people have learned how to spot these bullets and things like that. But we do need to stop random gunfire in our community, and I would be pushing for whatever we need to do to get that done. I hear too much. People are just ignoring other neighbors. I think when people go in their homes, they ought to be safe, and they ought to be able to sleep peacefully without a whole lot of noise going on the outside. And that's how I feel about that. But that's a police problem.
Mr. Christian.
Ready? Random gunfire? I don't know how you would stop that, but if you do hear random gunfire, it needs to be called into 911. And then the next thing is the police need to be responding as quick as they can to that area that you give. I mean, you don't have to give your full address or anything, but the police need to respond as quickly as possible to the general area and try to find what's going on and then deal with it through that. But you cannot, if you hear it, you cannot be afraid to call it in. A lot of people will hear it. Oh, I hear it happened. I hear it again tomorrow. I just don't call it in. You have to call it in so that the police can get out there and try to find out where it's coming from.
Mr. Carroll?
Regarding random gunfire, New Year's Eve was a good example. At the BOA meeting right after New Year's Eve, Chief reported that only 9 residents called in regarding the random gunfire. It was like a war zone in this community, and for only 9 people to call in, that's sad. And as a community, we need to be working together to engage our residents to be willing to call things into the police like that. Secondly, I would like to get a criminal nuisance ordinance in place that if you are caught firing off a weapon on your property, your occupancy permit is pulled and you are to vacate the area, to vacate the home. And I would address it those ways. And then if you look more as a community, I don't know how far the shop spotter and Moline Acres or Castle Point, but to start pinpointing those areas and using more predictive policing in those areas as well.
I'm going to grab the microphone as well, because some people, I think, having a little trouble hearing me as well. Is this a little better? Check. Is that a little better? Okay. This next question. What will you do as mayor to unite the community and move it toward competing with other cities like Brentwood or Bridgeton? And we will return to Mr. Carroll for this one.
I don't know if unity's that important. I think when you're talking about, I think that's the value of diversity, is having different opinions and everything like that. I think, like I said earlier in my opening statement, we need to kind of have a common direction to go as a community, but to sit there and, we're all in agreement with this. No, I don't agree with that, because like I said, I think that the power of diversity is different people's experiences, different people's ideas coming together for a common goal. I don't know if I want a Brentwood or a Richmond Heights, or is that what the... Or
Brentwood or Bridgeton.
Bridgeton. I don't know how feasible that would be for Bell Fountain neighbors. I mean, just going back to the question regarding economic development, where are we going to put all of that? And who do the residents want that? I think is another thing that we need to look at. As I stated in my opening statement, what do the residents want? Historically, we've been a bedroom community. And when you get into like those types of places, we're not going to get that much in sales tax revenue. We belong to the pool tax, and all of that revenue goes into the pool, and then it's distributed amongst the communities who are in the pool. So I mean, economic development is not going to financially save our community. We need to be looking at other options.
Mr. Pearson?
Thank you. It really goes back to community policing. Residents who don't trust the police won't call them, because when the police come, they're the target, and they had nothing to do with it other than calling and complaining. And so it goes back to community policing and the kind of relationship that the police have with the community. I submit to you that if the police department develop relationships in that community, they can catch the shooters, because the community would turn them in. But they don't have that kind of relationship with one another. So, you know, somebody ran into a tree in my yard about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I go out, and the police treat me like I ran into the tree. He want my driver's license, he want my social security number, he want my everything. I just got up and walked out the door. Now, why do I have to give you all of my information? You know who I am. This is my house, so you know where I live. Why do I have to give you everything? That's why a lot of people don't call the police, because they don't get a fair treatment with them.
Mr. Christian?
Unity for the community. I believe that one of the things that we can all do as a community, we want to work together. We want a sense of pride in our community and everything. Making sure their homes are not all looking the same, but all homes look nice and everything. That people won't mind driving through the community. That they feel safe in here. I think those are things to unite the community around, and those are things that we need to work towards. Yes, we want to have the police respond to everything. We want safe neighborhoods, but those are things that we can work towards for uniting, whether white, black, anything else. We want nice home, safe neighborhood. Those are the things we need to work on to unite our community together first.
Mr. Carroll?
I already answered it.
You already answered it, excuse me.
It's off right now.
Next question. What are your 3 priorities on day 1 should you be elected mayor? We will start with Mr. Pearson.
Well, I want to bring people together, and to have a good community, people have to work together. And so that's what I would initiate. I would get to know the residents in the city, and they would get to know their police officers. And then we would get with the board, and we would create good policies that lead to a strong neighborhood. It's when people feel safe where they live, and they feel a part of it and a respected part of it, they will take care of what they feel they own. If they don't own it, then you can have it. And so we have to bring them together, and I would be there to create a strong leadership in terms of administration. I think those 3 things would do well for our community.
Mr. Christian?
Three priorities on day one. I want to see the police out on the street. We pay them, they need to be out on the street. We need to have the building codes enforced from day one. If we don't like the way the building codes are, then we need to work as a board and fix and change the parts that we don't like and everything. But building codes need to be enforced. Number three, communication and working and just listening to everyone and each other and coming together to get a plan together on that first day and show that we all want to work together, that we're all here for the community together.
Mr. Carroll?
Well, as I said in my opening statement, my first thing would be to start coming up with a plan, start setting up meetings, community meetings with residents, all the departments in the city, and coming up with an actual plan as to what we want to see for our community and where we want to see our community go. I also think that there's too much concentration of power with the mayor currently, I believe, and I would want to divest myself or distance myself from that. I think we have a lot of boards, as I mentioned previously. The power of diversity is having different people with different ideas coming up with a solution to various problems. So I think to really empower the various boards that we have to come up with policies and things that they would like to see and recommend, I would really want to be empowering those boards to take more of an active leadership role in the community. They're made up of residents. Also, financial oversight and responsibility, and more community policing and neighborhood stabilization.
Next question. What is your position on requiring a police officer to live in the community they police? We will start with Mr. Christian.
I don't think that they need to necessarily live in the community, and that can be a restriction on getting officers here from other areas and things. I wouldn't be for requiring them to live in the city. We would want to encourage them to come and live into the city because this is the neighborhood that they patrol and that they're around all the time. But I don't know that we would bring in enough people, or someone that's been a cop or a police officer for many years and they already own a home. Can we make them leave that home just to come take this job? Having the police just become part of the community during their day in and day out job of patrolling the streets, that's what we need to work on for the police department. I don't think necessarily having them live here, it needs to become a requirement.
Mr. Pearson?
I would encourage it, but not make it a requirement. There are incentives that you could give new police officers. See, like some cities, they've acquired vacant homes in the community, and they sell them to new police officers coming in for $1, and they repair those homes. And I think police officers who live in the community, they would want to see their community policed well and be as healthy as possible. I don't think it's altogether good for police officers to drive into a neighborhood to police it, and they don't really know the neighborhood. They don't try to get to know the neighborhood. So they're just there to police you and leave. So I would not require it, but I would encourage it.
Mr. Carroll?
I wouldn't require it either. We do have one police officer, to my knowledge, that lives in our community. I think the underlying sentiment to that question is police knowing the community and everything like that, and that's why I would be a strong proponent of community policing. But to do community policing, it also needs to be facilitated by the elected officials of the community. It's just not going to be the police department or the neighbors that do that. It has to be facilitated by the elected officials. Unfortunately, this year during the budget, there was $5,000 that was being budgeted for community policing activities, but that was removed from the budget. So, if we want to do community policing, and we're talking about community policing and getting to know the neighbors, we also have to give the resources to our officers to do that type of policing.
Next question. Outside of politics, what is a specific accomplishment that you have that you're the most proud of, and how would it help you as mayor? We will start with Mr. Pearson.
I think one of the most accomplishments that I'm proud of is the work that I did on the I-64 project. And the monies that we saved, and the young people that we trained to not just work on that project, but to work on other projects. One of my proudest moments was when I went down on the project site and spoke with some of the young people who were working there. A young man said to me, "I'm fresh out of prison." Went to school. We provided that school because 1% of all federal highway funds go for training. Missouri had never used that money until we accessed that money on that project. He says, "I'm fresh out of prison and went to school and got this job." And he says, "My wife's proud of me now, my children are proud of me now, and I'm making good money." And I said, "And you don't have to look over your shoulder when you collect your money, do you?" He said, "No." That was one of my proudest moments. I had to leave from there because I was getting a little watery-eyed, so I had to go. But that was a proud moment to hear that young man say that, and to know that I had something to do with it.
Mr. Christian?
A specific accomplishment that I'm really proud of, guess for me it's been back when I graduated from college. I was the first one in my family to do it. Still currently the only one to have done it. Wish I would have been able to do a lot more with it and everything, but just the time and the energy and everything that I put into it and everything to work towards that goal, that meant a lot, and I think I would say that's one of my largest accomplishments that I'm very proud of.
Mr. Carroll?
I think the proudest accomplishment that I've done in my life is raising my son. Everything else doesn't really matter. I mean, in the end, when I'm laying on my deathbed, I'm not going to be like, "Oh, I've got a master's degree," and all of that kind of stuff. It's being able to spend quality time with my son. I'm going to get emotional. He's just a fine young man, and I'm just so proud of what he's done in his short life, and that really just, I mean, the struggles he had as a child and what he's become and how he's in the, serving the country in the military, and he's the kindest and warmest person that you could ever meet. So my proudest accomplishment is my son.
Next question. Getting residents to attend board meetings is always a challenge. What would you do, if anything, to shorten the length of board meetings? We will start with Mr. Christian.
I don't know that we can really shorten the length of a board meeting if it's going to be a public meeting and we have the public come in and want to be able to speak also. I mean, enforcing the time limit that we have now, and that might bring it down a little bit. I would want all of our aldermen to be prepared as they come into the meeting and everything. That would also help. That may shorten it down a little bit if you're prepared and know exactly what you need to speak about for the evening. Make sure you do. And this goes back to being on the Board of Aldermen. Make sure that you've done your research and everything for the day, or for the evening, so that you know what's going on. But lengthening it, I mean, 100 people can come in and want to ask questions. I believe we need to give them all the time to speak and everything. So I don't really know that we can shorten the time. We just have to make sure we conduct our business in an efficient manner and go on with that.
Mr. Pearson?
I think we have to make meetings more attractive to the community, and I agree that they need to be to the point. It need not be personal. It just need to be city business. I think if you did that, people would come and they would stay throughout the whole meeting. But as it is now, you can start off with a crowd, and you can begin to lose your audience as you go along, because you're losing them. They don't want to hear what you got to say, and that sort of thing. It's kind of like me preaching on Sunday morning. I can start off with a full house and preach the house empty. Huh? What the?
Mr. Carroll?
Yeah.
That's a board issue. I mean, I know the mayor runs the meetings, but I think that's more of a board issue. I mean, if they need to take 3 hours to discuss what they need to discuss, that's what they need to do. I don't know if it's necessary to shorten the time or what. If it takes, like I said, if it takes 3 hours to do the business, it takes 3 hours to do the business.
Next question. Would you support a specific budget dedicated to community policing? And we'll start with Mr. Pearson.
Yes, I would.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes, I would, and as I pointed out, that was put in this year's budget, but it was removed. I don't think $5,000 is even sufficient to touch on what we need to do with community policing. I think maybe the fire department or the fire district, they have a good community outreach program going on. They are also looking at starting a program at the high school of firefighters mentoring students to go into firefighting. So I think the city could model itself after the fire district in regards to community activities and actually sufficiently fund it to where kind of like what Alderwoman West tried to do last year. What she did last year was she held a block party. I think we need more of that to get out to know your neighbors.
Next question. How important do you believe it is for a mayor to promote and organize community gatherings at churches or in parks, and how would you go about promoting those gatherings if so? And we'll start with Mr. Christian.
Mayor should be promoting every kind of community gathering that's held within our own city. The mayor is the elected person representing everybody, not just one person, not just a group of people. You're there to represent the entire city. So you need to promote every type of event, going along with transparency from earlier and things, and with the newsletter, having a newsletter that shows different events throughout the city. I just can't hear myself. Making sure if we have a website or a Facebook page, that all different types of events are there. And then also being at these community events and encouraging the aldermen and any other elected or appointed officials within the city to be at these events to show community support and just community togetherness, that we're here as your workers, but we're here also to support your cause and everything.
Mr. Pearson?
I do too. I think the mayor should be the promoter, the number one promoter of the city. I think we should attend youth activities. especially at the high school, whether basketball, football, drama, or some other kind of activity at the school. I think residents need to get back to that. They used to do it. They need to get back to that because that's how you build relationships with those students. When you support them and they see you, they will have respect for you and that sort of thing. So I think the mayor should be the #1 promoter of the city of Bellefontaine Neighbors.
Mr. Carroll?
Yeah, I believe the mayor should be involved in community and promoting community events. I hosted a national night out event last year. It was my first time, and it was a really great turnout. I got to meet a lot of my neighbors, and I've decided to do that on a monthly basis now in my neighborhood, just so I can actually start meeting my neighbors. I know a lot of the kids now, kids at the bus stop. So I think it's a great idea to know your neighbors, get out and meet your community. The fire department came, the police came. So I would be encouraging that. And like I said, I think the city needs to be facilitating those types of activities just so we can start developing a sense of community.
Next question, and this is actually the final question before 2-minute closing statements by each of the candidates. How specifically would you address the systematic racism in our community? And we will start with Mr. Christian.
We need to just start learning about each other, listening, talking, knowing how one person feels when another person's talking to them. We need to have training in our departments so that the people who are serving this community knows how to interact and talk with and just know that different people have different situations in life and that one way is not the right way for everybody. Knowing your neighbor, visiting with people, getting to know people is the best way to get rid of any type of racism. When you sit down and talk with someone that you don't know or you think is that you wouldn't ever get along with or because they're a different color, sit down and talk with them first. Get to know the person. We're all just people. That's the biggest thing that everybody doesn't do, is just sit and talk with each other.
This time we'll go to Mr. Carroll.
How I would address that, I think it needs to be acknowledged. Yeah, we're all people, but we all don't have the same experience and we're not all treated equally. So we need to recognize that first. Additionally, I think if you're going to address or we're going to address systemic racism in our community, it needs to be measurable. What are we what does that mean? What does it look like? What are the specific goals and objectives of dealing with this issue in our community? And I think Dr. Jason Parnell from Wash U University did a study regarding health disparities in communities. People in Bellefontaine Neighbors have 10 years less life expectancy than people in Clayton, and I think to start addressing systemic racism, I would use his study. He had suggestions and start addressing the health disparities in our community.
Mr. Pearson.
It goes back to it goes back to good policing. Historically, the police have been used to divide and promote division in our community based on race. So unless you address the problem right there, you're never going to reach your desired goal. I don't know of a kid who have not been abused by a police officer, didn't want to be with a police officer. I've had events at my church with the police, and I watched those little kids, how they rally around those police officers, And I watch the older kids who've had an experience with them, a negative experience, they don't want to be around them. I was over at Riverview Gardens High School during the Michael Brown incident, and I spoke with, along with the governor, spoke with 25 seniors at Riverview. One kid told me, who lived in Ferguson, that his mom let him go someplace and told him to be home by dark. It was getting dark and he was running. The police stopped him because he was running. And he said he hadn't done anything. The police grabbed him and threw him in the back of his car and checked him out and let him go. The boy wasn't breaking no law or nothing. He was just trying to get home before dark because his mother told him to. And he says, by the way, I'm a straight A student. In most communities, you protect students like that. But if you don't know them, how do you know who to protect? So you treat everybody the same, the good ones and the bad kids, everybody the same, and that has to stop.
For the closing statements, each candidate will have 2 minutes, and this will be the order. We will begin with Mr. Carroll, then Mr. Pearson, and then Mr. Christian. Mr. Carroll?
All I have to say is I'm running for mayor so I can do something in our community, not be something in our community. And that's my closing statement.
Mr. Pearson?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the library and those who put this forum on. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the residents and all of you for coming out to listen to us. When you do that, you say to us that what we have to say matter. And so I thank you for that. What I would like for you to take away from this forum today is that as your future mayor, I'm committed to listening to all of you. Your input is valued. I have a proven ability and experience to be the leader that is needed in Bellefontaine Neighbors at this time. I have the heart and temperament to work with the city employees and to move all of us to work for a common good for this great city. I love this city because it's my home and has been my home for nearly 20 years. What affect this city directly impacts me and my family. Life is about choices, and choices have consequences. On April 2nd, you have a choice to make. When you go to the polls on April 2nd, choose wisely. Because if you don't, it's a 4-year mistake. So this city needs a forward-thinking mayor with the ability to lead, and it is clear to me that I am that person. Vote for me, Tommy Pearson, as your next mayor of Bellefontaine Neighbors. Thank you.
Mr. Christian?
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who attended today. Thank you to the library. Thank you for all the questions. I'm running for mayor because I want to represent all of you. I want all of us to come together as a community, work together as one, and be proud of our community. There are things that we've all spoke about today. We want police on the street. We want our building codes enforced. We want our school district and our fire district. We want to work with them together and to make everything better as a community. The thing that I want to bring here is that I'm going to sit and listen to everyone. I want everyone to have input in how their city is run, how they live their lives and everything, and how the government, how the city can affect their lives and everything. Just being mayor doesn't do anything unless we're there to affect somebody's life or to help them along the way or to just be neighborly to somebody. Neighbors is in our name. It's all about coming together, working together, and being one as a community. I want to thank everybody again. I would appreciate your vote on April 2nd, and thank you.
All right, let's give him a hand.